Hello, and you are very welcome along to another RTÉ Rugby podcast as we head into round two of the Guinness Six Nations Championship after what was a pretty brilliant opening weekend, particularly for Ireland, 34-10 winners against Wales. We also had another Scottish Calcutta Cup success, 28-24 winners against England at Twickenham, and Italy running France all the way, beaten just about in the end, 29 points to 24. Having had a line out about 5-10 meters short of the French line in the final minute. But France hold on, get a bonus point win, and they bring that with them to Dublin this weekend, where they're going to be taking on Ireland at the Aviva Stadium on Saturday. Delighted to be joined by Bernard Jackman and Sean Cronin for this week's RTÉ Rugby podcast. Fellas, how are you doing?
Very good, thanks.
I might just start in broad terms before we even get into the matches specifically, Sean, but overall thoughts on round one. Three absolutely brilliant games. Even the one in Cardiff, which was probably the worst of the three, but we got to see Ireland in full flight in the opening half of that game. And in fairness to Wales, even though they didn't really bring it too close on the scoreboard, there was a bit of intensity. There was a good bit of a fight back in that third quarter that made it at the very least a decent game to watch. But overall, it was a pretty brilliant opening weekend.
Yeah, no, it was three really, really good games. I think first time in the Six Nations history anyway that you had three away wins in one weekend. So, yeah, like you said, the Wales-Ireland game, Ireland came steaming out the gate, and I suppose Wales had to show some pride and passion in that second half, and I suppose towards the end of the first half as well, it could have ran up to tipping 50 points if the game had continued the way it was going in the first 20, 25, 30 minutes. So, and then England and Scotland was a cracker again, kind of following on from the last few years that they've had really, really good games. So that was a great game to watch as well. Some unbelievable individual scores and team scores in that game. And then on Sunday, like you said, Italy were, pushed France all the way. Wasn't too impressed with France, to be honest. And I think if Italy had more of a extra structure and maybe a nine that could box kick the ball, they might have, seen off France, or a bit more clinical as well in the 22. So three really, really good games. Such a great start to such a great competition. For myself, with great memories going with my father to my first ever game, England against Ireland. We got hammered in the old Lansdowne Road, and I'm bringing my own two boys to the game this weekend. So that'll be their first Six Nations game. So it's great.
Well, hopefully it's not a hammering. But Birch, like as Sean said there, I mean, talk about an understatement with Italy and the exit strategies and box kicking. But just in general, like, we did get great excitement. And I'm just curious, before we specifically get into the games, with any opinions you might have had on how the tournament was going to shape up, have they been changed ever so slightly on the opening weekend?
Look, obviously I wasn't impressed by France at all. And Italy obviously, well, for me, they performed better than I probably expected. I kind of didn't give them credit for that win against Australia, maybe, or Wales last year, because, well, Wales are poor and Australia did turn the team a little bit. But that was impressive. But they need halfbacks. I mean, even at the end, Tommaso Allen, by not putting that closer to the try line, he just gives France a psychological boost. They need 9 to 10. Garbisi obviously will play 10 when he's fit, but and that ambition to play, I mean, is great, and we want to see Italy play, but some of their playing at 22 just got them into trouble. And I'm sure Kieran Crowley will fix that this week. England, I was disappointed with England. I didn't expect England's attack to be top notch, but I thought they would be better at the things that Borthwick can easily improve, which is effectively that kick chase and kicking game, and their kick chase was very poor. So a bit of a blip for them, or a bad start for them. And it's interesting, he's added now 2 more members of the Leicester coaching staff in Wigglesworth and Alan Waters, and they're coming in after the Six Nations. So it may be a while before England get up to speed. And then I suppose I'm disappointed with Wales. Look at the foundations of Wales are built on sand, and there's only so much Catholic can do. But I would have thought he would have got an emotional response first game up, and with older players, they can pull a performance out of the bag, and they didn't at all. Okay, they rallied a bit in the third quarter, but that first half for them was desperately bad, considering that there's been a change of coach, and they come on the back of obviously losing to Georgia and losing to Italy last year, and Ireland coming to town, who they don't really fear usually. So yeah, I think there has, a couple of teams have definitely surprised me, but I wouldn't write off France. I think France historically have been poor against Italy. They did enough to win, and I actually think it's bad for us the way they played, and how easy it's going to be for them to have their heads on this week. Not saying we don't think we'll beat them, but I just think France are still, it's between us and France as far as I'm concerned.
Right, that sets it up nicely for something I'm going to ask a little bit later on, but I'll get into Wales and Ireland first up. So Ireland 34-10 winners, 4-try bonus point win for Ireland, 27-3 in front at halftime as well, when it kind of felt the game was all but done. Wales did rally in the third quarter. Ireland finished it off just after the 70-minute mark, Van der Fleer scoring the bonus point try. And Sean, so when I was watching it in the stadium, particularly that third quarter, I didn't feel particularly comfortable throughout that third quarter, even though Ireland had a 27 points to 10 buffer for a lot of that. On a second viewing, when I got back home on Sunday and rewatched on Monday, it didn't really look like Ireland were actually under any enormous pressure, aside from the territory and possession that Wales had. But when it came close to the Irish line, they always just seemed to be pretty comfortable with what they were doing defensively.
Yeah, I think from a psychological point of view, it's just, I suppose, going that far up, and did we take the foot off the pedal a small bit? Discipline seemed to wane as well. It was kind of flipped from really the first 20 minutes, where I think it was 8 penalties to 1 in our favour. I know you spoke about the territory, but even the opening couple of minutes where Ireland received the box kick, and we worked it into the middle, and we put a lovely kick in behind, and Liam Williams, he tries to run it out, he just dot it down, take your goal line kick and get your line set again to go and defend. I just thought it was a bit all over the place from Wales, which gave Ireland energy, early scores, but again, look, building into that third quarter, I think combination then of our discipline just gone out the window, but still being comfortable. And Wales did kind of blow a couple of chances. Andrew Porter got a lovely tackle underneath Jack Morgan. So look, maybe if we concede another try there and they're back in the game and the crowd's getting behind them. So I think it's really good from an Irish point of view, because it wasn't the perfect performance, and they know the challenge that lies ahead this week. So it'll keep lads nicely grounded in terms of attacking this week well, and going after France at home.
Yeah, and Birch, we'll talk now about that opening 15 minutes, and opening 2 minutes, to be honest, as well, leading up to Caelan Darris's try. Because Sean kind of mentioned it there, that the sequence of play where Wales send a kick out to Ireland, straight away Ireland look to try find the edge. Stuart McCluskey gets a lovely pass out to James Lowe on the wing. Nice kick down the touch line. Really good kick chase from James Lowe and Gary Ringrose. Liam Williams kind of dawdles on it a little bit, rushes his clearance kick, and Ireland have a line out pretty deep inside the Welsh 22. I mean, that passage of play ultimately is essentially as good as winning a penalty for Ireland, and it's down to just everybody doing their jobs absolutely perfectly and setting up what was a try in the end after just 2 minutes.
Yeah, and look, teams have plans and policies to try and get early field position. So, obviously if you receive the kickoff, it's a lot harder. But that play to waste and kick on the edge is a very effective play in Ireland. Ireland do it a lot. They do it a lot. Their kick chase is very good. But Wales, I totally agree with Sean. Wales just need to take their medicine there. Like, the last thing you want to do is give Ireland an attacking line out, because so much of our go forward and scores come from that. They would have been better off, actually, if you had to take contact and play a phase and eventually maybe box kick there. You just don't want to give Ireland a line out in the 22. But obviously the preferred option was to take the goal line drop out. And I agree, it showed how maybe frazzled they were. Obviously Liam Williams was a late replacement for Lee Halfpenny. Obviously it's a new coaching team. Maybe there's mixed messages. in terms of, you know, what they want to do or how they want to defend. And even I thought there was too much space in that backfield as well. It was too easy for James Lowe to find good grass. So I don't think we should get carried away with ourselves, because I don't think Wales are the barometer that we should be judging ourselves against at the moment. Potentially, yeah, if they had a bounce with Gatland, but it was clear they didn't. But to be fair to Ireland, I mean, the way we carried, the way we cleaned, our low error rate, our discipline that first 30 minutes, our power game, it was very impressive. Conor Murray, I thought, was excellent in terms of, you know, when to run himself, but also what options to take. And because there was question marks for Ireland, obviously, Furlong being out, late change with Conor coming in, we looked in rude health, and would have got massive confidence from that. Obviously, getting the bonus point at the end, so you know, no injuries really to worry us. And yeah, it's positive. At least into this weekend, perfect. You know.
But considering as well, then, March, the disruption of the morning, you know, 2 injuries coming in a bit late in the day. Like, I was walking around Cardiff and I spoke to a couple of Irish fans, and there was a real sense of unease just those couple of hours before the match, when it seemed like everything was kind of tipping against Ireland, and this great Gatland ambush seemed like it was staring us straight in the face. So to start the way they did, I know you're saying let's not get carried away because Wales were quite poor, but it does reflect very well on probably the mental strength and the attitude that the players have, that they weren't going to be frazzled by anything, you know, any late inconveniences before the game.
Yeah, and I'd love to know Sean's opinion on this, because obviously he was involved over the last number of years. But my sense from talking to some of the players is that the pressure or the hype of being number one in the world, I suppose the hangover of past World Cups, doesn't seem to really in their heads. I know they say all the right things, but I think they have a game plan that's excites them, that they constantly can make better. And look, it's a small sample pool, it's one game, but I wouldn't be overly, you know, even if we lose to France at the weekend or don't win a Six Nations, I don't think it'll be because of whatever Dave Nucifora said was the problem in Japan. Was it psychological trauma or whatever? You know, no, stress, performance related stress. But they seem to be in a really good place physically, but also in terms of just that mental composure.
Sean, to you there, sorry, Bert was saying, kind of in comparison to previous years, do you think that they're probably not as burdened maybe by kind of late inconveniences, or they're happy to just kind of go with the flow a bit more?
Well, I think a lot of it is stemming down from the messages. You hear Andy Farrell say that they want to be comfortable in chaos, I think is the new buzz phrase. So once you see your coach kind of have that air of confidence about whether you got guys coming in late, you know, stepping in for over injuries or late buses or whatever you have, that it's not going to affect the way the team performs. And I think that stems down from the coaching staff. Look, I'm not saying, Joe was such a perfectionist with every little detail, whether it was on match day or training prep week, and maybe sometimes that air of when things weren't absolutely perfect did kind of seep down into the squad. So I think the importance of just the fact that the coaches have such trust in whoever's stepping in, and then the messages from the camp in terms of the players are how enjoyable the environment is. So it seems to be that kind of stuff has been left in the past, really. And it's a new crop of players, largely, you know, in the last 2 to 3 years that Andy's brought in. So that whole switch as well has probably laid the foundations for a more relaxed environment, an environment where they're prepared more to deal with late injuries, guys coming in and out.
Yeah, and it's funny, Andy Farrell, like he has spoken so much in the last few months about really, really embracing all those little inconveniences, like, you know, Johnny Sexton pulling up injured before the Australia game, even dealing with adding extra matches to the tour in New Zealand, or sticking on the A game, the night before they played South Africa last year, just to test them out and see how they cope when they're all a little bit stressed. But I did wonder on Saturday afternoon when those injuries came in, would Andy Farrell have been going, Jesus, what sort of bad juju have I brought on myself here with what I've been what I've been wishing for. But one of the other things he spoke about last week in really great detail was how obsessed he is himself with studying how great teams stay great. Like looking at the great Manchester United teams of down the years, and obviously he's a big Man City fan as well. He's talking about them. But you did have to think maybe Caelan Doris, Ireland are pushing for a fourth try late in the first half. Caelan Doris knocks on that ball, and probably if they had gone and scored a try there, it probably would have been an absolute blowout. Even in the second half, it was hard to see Wales putting on much of a comeback. But that's the next step for them now, Birch, is to, when they have the foot on the throat of another team, to really, really be clinical and just force that down.
Yeah, it is, but I think they kind of managed that, because I don't think you're going to have an 80-minute performance against a tier 1 team where you're totally dominant. But I actually thought the way we kind of got out of sync, and that was with Johnny on the field as well. So which is important. He's only human as well. He everything is not always perfect when he's on. And then Ross Byrne came on, and he was part of, I suppose, that change up, getting back into our shape, getting back, playing the ball in the right areas of the field, but keeping the ball as well. Then when we want to attack and shifting the point of contact, he played out the back at the right time, and we moved Wales around again, and eventually then got the bonus point. So I think that's what championship teams do, is they just, when they get the opportunity, they're clinical, and I think he'd be really happy. And it's very good for Ross Byrne as well, because I mean, Farrell made a statement by putting him on the bench, because obviously it's probably with Crowley game time, and there's really but I think he's nailed his colours to the mast now. Ross Byrne is the number 2, and for Ross Byrne to, obviously against Australia, he came on and kicked the penalty, but there he actually had a real meaningful part to play in getting Ireland out of a little bit of a lull in terms of their form, and going and getting a bonus point, which may be crucial at the end. So I think it worked out perfectly for everybody, really, because there's also, that 25-minute block where discipline went, where defensively we were soaking. I mean, this week, they're going to have to be better in those areas. If you give France those soft entry points to get their maul game going, or for Ramos or Jackman, who maybe might come in to kick goals from 50, that's how you lose test matches.
Yeah, and on Byrne actually as well, like, I know it was only 12 minutes he played in it, but he did actually brought a lot of bite into the attack, even just for those last 10 minutes. Like, had an impactful last 12 minutes, I'd probably say, whereas maybe in the past, in a lot of his caps, he was playing that length of time, and games were done. There wasn't really a lot for him to do other than to just see things out.
No, look, I think he, to kind of back up what Bert said, he probably has solidified that number 2 spot. Combination of really, really good form this year with Leinster. I suppose getting that level of trust back in terms of what Andy Farrell is looking for with him in that environment. So came on, I thought his game management, as usual, was really, really good. I suppose in terms of what they looked for him to work on was his, I suppose, when he's getting the ball out the back of shape, attacking the line with pace, because his game management has always been his really, really strong point. So it's great. I'm a big fan of Ross, and he seems to have solidified that number 2 spot. But again, there's going to be bigger challenges ahead, and he might have to step in big games if Johnny pulls up, or so there's bigger tests ahead in terms of him having to develop his game at the international level.
He probably never seems to get the trust at international level, John, but like, certainly from a Leinster point of view, it always seemed to be the case that if Johnny Sexton wasn't around, or if he was just being rested, there was never really any issue of trust around putting Ross in for those big games. Like, he always seemed pretty comfortable in those situations. What sort of a player is he confidence-wise?
I think it's more how he's very cool, calm, collected type customer. His knowledge of the game is outstanding, and I suppose that ties into how he's, I suppose, in terms of his game management is top notch. I suppose it's that air of coolness that players see and they buy into, so that they're confident as well. And he runs the game really, really well, especially when you're playing with a pack that I suppose 9 times out of 10 are going to be getting you front foot ball, and that gives the opportunity of the 10 to shine. So it's like I said, he's slowly but surely over the last 18 months through his form in Leinster and whatever Andy gave him to work on in the club has, I suppose, he's fought his way back into that Irish camp, and he's on the bench, and he'll probably go again this week, which is a big kudos to him.
Yeah, and Birchie, he's a nice example to hold up for any players who've kind of found themselves on the fringes in the last 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the beauty of it. Sometimes you don't get that second shot; it's in vain. But I suppose he's very lucky in that when he like playing for Leinster, even if he never got back into the Irish squad, which obviously would have been his goal, there were still trophies to be sought after, and he was getting regular game time there. He came off the bench in the Champions Cup final in Marseille, etc. So but it is like things change quickly, whether through injury or form, and you got to be ready to take your chance. And for him, it was coming off the bench against Australia and kicking that goal was the turning point. And then obviously since then he's got a real strong run of form games for Leinster because of Johnny's facial injury, and he's hammered home the fact that he deserves to be an international 10.
In terms of individual performances at the weekend, I'm actually going to throw this over to you rather than throwing out names, because there were a handful of really, really good performances out there. But Sean, if you were to pick out a couple of people you want to highlight for how well they played at the weekend, who are you shining that line on?
Well, in the pack anyway, I suppose there was a number of lads, but James Ryan for me has hit a real rich vein of form.
I'm glad you brought him up actually now, because I did have him on my list, and I was a bit unhappy that he wasn't getting too much credit over the last few days, because I think he's playing absolutely out of his skin in the last few months.
Yeah, look, even just is something that was, I think, got under his skin big time in terms of this physicality, lack of I suppose persona that was going around. I think he looks back to his best. You got to remember, this guy was, especially at lock, broke into the Leinster team and Irish team at such a young age. Looks back to his best there in terms of carrying in the tight. He took leading up to Caelan Darris's try, beautiful inside ball off Johnny, 2 or 3 Welsh guys leg drive to take him down. His work in the line out. So he's been outstanding, and he seems to have got back to that form of 2018, 2019. So, and then Caelan Darris for me, he's getting a lot of praise at the moment, and I think it's thoroughly deserved. He's been just outstanding, massive fulcrum for that team, carrying, breakdown work, his acceleration into contact, his hands, he just has it all. The sky's the limit for this guy going forward over the next Six Nations and into the World Cup if he hopefully stays fit.
Birch, I'll bring Doris up again in a second, but just to go back on Ryan, and Sean was saying how well he's playing at the moment. In terms of the line-out stuff as well, this has been something now for the last few months where he's producing big moments, not just the kind of little moments consistently, but he's producing the big moments. South Africa, that line out right before halftime, Ireland defending their own 22, and he steals it. A couple of weeks later, he had a massive steal late on in the game against Australia. A few weeks ago against Racing 92 for Leinster at the Aviva Stadium as well. When Leinster were under a lot of pressure in the first half, he produced a massive line out steal. And then at the weekend, that one 15 minutes from time, which really killed the little bit of momentum Wales had when they got down into the Ireland 22 again. And I'm pretty sure we've mentioned them over the last couple of months, and we've mentioned those line-out steals. And the big thing that always comes up is obviously their big risk-reward plays. Your timing, when you're going to go from. You're not always competing, but you're waiting for that moment to go from. But crucially, it seems that more often than not, he's picking the right moment to go for them, and he's getting those decisions correct.
Yeah, and he's doing it with big conviction. And look at I think the big one that he stole cleanly, that was probably easy enough because Wales had brought 3 backs into the front of the line out, and then they actually didn't really have much movement. It was they threw the first one to George North, which nearly worked, but the second one was set up for him. But I look back at it yesterday, and he seems to be not really worried about what the line out, what's happening in the line out. He's literally going off the throw, Ken Owens has a quite a slow throw. I had one myself, so I know all about it. So, but the ball isn't really snappy through the air, and when you come up against a hooker who throws like that, even if you're beaten and you don't give up on it, and your lifters, stay with you, you can sometimes actually get back and disrupt it. So, I think but what he's doing is he's backing himself, and he's just taking a spot in the line out, and it sounds so ridiculously simple, but he's just literally staying after that ball till the very end. And when you can get one, he disrupted one on the other side that was tapped back on the Welsh side, so it wasn't a clean turnover, but they're crucial, you know what I mean? Because we know how hard it is to defend the maul or the play after that, and if you can disrupt the ball in the air, it's massive. But I agree with Sean. I think like he's not a massive man, so we love the Taufanias, the Willemses, the Estebets, but pound for pound he punches very hard, and he's probably, I'm not saying he's injury free, because you really are if you play like him, but his injuries aren't hampering him being able to do what he wants. And he's become a key man for us, because look, it's not easy in their second row. There's lots of competition, but himself and Ty Byrne, I think you couldn't question their selection at the moment.
I'm talking to two hookers now, actually, so I might even just hone in on the line out and the throwing side of things on both sides of the ball. So if we're talking there about James Ryan's developing a habit of, making the right reads and getting up and making crucial steals. We've seen Peter O'Mahony do it down the years as well. If you're the opposition hooker coming in for a crucial line out in the 22, are those things playing on your mind if the opposition have a notorious line out pincher?
Yeah, well, do you want to go take this, Birch?
Well, so I just hung myself, so you work away.
Well, this is the thing, I suppose, leading up to games. Look, you said Peter O'Mahony, you're hoping that your line-out caller has given you an option where, I suppose, Pete is it's all about work you do during the week, in terms of if you're coming up against a Peter O'Mahony or a Ty Byrne, James Ryan, you pick up on whatever nuances they have, whether they're looking at the hooker, do they bite early, are you trying to beat them with dummy movement and get in behind them? So you're hoping that when the loose head prop's giving you the line-out call, that the right call has been called. But again, look, it does. It's in your. It's no doubt it's going to be in your head that you're coming up against a serious line-out operator. But you're hoping that you've got the work done in the week, in terms of your options, your spotters, that you have a plan put in place. But again, going back to that line-out, I suppose back to the James Ryan piece where Wales had that with the three backs in. They just had two pods deep, so our Irish lads just sat on those two pods, left the backs at the front. So it was an easy read. But again, I think Paul O'Connell and Robin McBride are giving James Ryan the option of going up. They're not saying let's just stay down and be conservative. They're picking their moments well, like you gave countless examples of different games where I think it's coming from the coaches as well. I think the work Paul O'Connell has done with James Ryan is definitely, whether it's around the ruck or the line out, you can see it, which is the best aspect of how you see the coaching coming through with the lads.
And then the flip side is, and I'm wary I'm potentially probably putting an absolute curse on him ahead of this weekend, the line out on Saturday functioned really, really well. You've definitely mentioned Birch over the last few weeks as well. Dan Sheehan, there was one of the Champions Cup games, there was like 26 or 27 out of 27 off the line, and it was another 15 out of 15 at the weekend. And just in general play, I mean, Dan Sheehan has just been out of his skin lately.
Yeah, look at he's like Sean around the pitch, and he's phenomenal. Like, it's scary how good he can be. I think like his set piece is good. I wasn't sure about his scrummaging, but haven't seen anything to say that's it's not more than adequate. He just seems to love playing the game. He's played a lot of minutes this year for Leinster, and he's up there. He's probably, for me, he's the best hooker in the Six Nations this year. And I love Marsha, but I think Sheehan has got a little bit more to him, and more dynamic, more mobile. But I think he's thrown very well. I think Herring's a good thrower, obviously, and he was on the bench. But I do think our line out at the moment is easy to throw to because of our movement, because of our calling, because of our lifting, because of the threat we are away from the lineout. So teams are nearly afraid to overcommit to challenge it.
They have to stay honest, basically.
I think so. I think you're there's a low chance of you winning it, so they don't go after it as hard as well, and that's the ideal scenario for any hooker. But no, Sheehan is. I think Sheehan's ridiculously good, to be honest. I think just every week he just does something that makes me go, wow, that fella is class.
Is he the most dynamic hooker since Sean Cronin?
I don't know. I think he's about 4 or 5 inches on me and about 10 kilos. So, oh no, look, he's been outstanding. I suppose he really took control of that jersey on the New Zealand tour, and hasn't looked back. Benefited from Ronan Kelleher picking up injuries here and there, but like Bernard said, there is just moments in every game where you're like, wow. Even the one towards the back end of the game where he got the ball and accelerated, just about 70 minutes gone, and I was like, how does he still have that in the legs? So very fit, obviously great feet, strong, and his throw is I don't know whether it's because his levers, but like the ball, he's a beautiful throw, very zippy through the air. So he's been outstanding. So it's look, if Ronan can get back fit, it's going to be a great 1-2 combo to have, whatever way it is. But like I was saying, Dan is the man in control at the moment for sure, and you obviously have Rob there as well pushing them all. So pretty well stocked at the hooker position.
Yeah, and it was funny you said that Chansey got maybe about 10 minutes to go. Andy Farrell mentioned that after the game as well, and he was saying it's ridiculous in and of itself that when Sheehan got the ball that far out wide, probably just outside the 22, Farrell was saying he thought he might actually go all the way here, which is just a kind of ludicrous idea to be thinking your hooker, when he gets the ball that far out, might actually go all the way and do it.
And just on that, there was another earlier in the game, Wales took a crossfield kick to Ken Owen, who is a dynamic hooker in itself, in space. And it was just like, oh no, like, it was just because I didn't know who was over there, because I just followed the ball on the camera, and I think he'd one-on-one Mac Hansen, and he got smashed. You know what I mean? Whereas if Sheehan gets that, it's literally like a winger getting
it. Ken is my age now, Birch.
I know.
Dynamism is long gone. I think he was 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
But very quickly on Wales before I bring in France. Are Wales a potential wooden spoon candidate already?
Yeah, I think so. I think if it goes badly for them this week, they're
going to Rome as well. They're going to Rome.
Yeah. I don't know if there's going to be a quick fix unless Gatland either gets the best out of that those old fellas again quickly, or he's going to have to cut them loose. And then you have this whole challenge of the youngsters getting experience in the Six Nations, and like it's worrying. So Alan Jones originally was ruled out because of a HIA failure. Now they've said he's passed it. Corey Hill is in Japan. Gatland wants to bring him back, but he can't. Will Rowlands is injured and going for the Racing. I mean, the depth isn't really there, as we know from watching the regions play in the URC. But I think it could go pear-shaped for Wales pretty quickly.
Yeah, we're gonna move on to France now. So Sean, which of the two camps are you in? Are you in France got out of jail against Italy and Ireland are going to punish them for all that sloppiness, or France had an off day in Rome, but they've got the dirty diesel out of the system and they're going to be a different beast at the weekend?
Oh, I'd have to probably sway to the second one. There's just too much quality there in that squad to be saying that they can't get things right this weekend. They're missing a couple of key players as well. Dante being a big one. Fofana is a good player, but he just gets them, especially off set piece starters, over the game line, whether it's scrum or line out, and then they build their game off that, whether it's working you in close with big forward runners or DuPont trying to pick holes and then getting offloads. So he's a big player. No, look, I think I'd definitely be that they're going to be a huge test this week, especially based on the fact that we're going to be down. Look, I thought Finlay did really, really well last weekend, but again, like myself and Birch have said, Wales is not France, so massive challenge there in the scrum, in the tight up front. So look, I still think we'll get the job done. I think the team has built a really hard team to break down in the Aviva. So I think we'll have around the pitch too much quality, but it's going to be a far tougher task than it was at the weekend.
Yeah, Birch, I'm going off the kind of early hints you gave right at the start of the pod, but I get the feeling you're expecting a very, very different French team coming up to, well, maybe not personnel wise, but just in terms of attitude and general play, a very, very different side coming to Dublin this week.
Yeah, I am. I think it's easy for them to kind of build this into, a bit of a cause for them. They're the Grand Slam champions. Ireland are going to be favourites. They feel it should be number one in the world. Ireland are number one in the world, technically, on the rankings. They're 14 games unbeaten yet. They'll twist it that they're not getting respect. They deserve poor performance against Italy. Sean Edwards will be furious with them. It's going to be, it's a challenge for them. This sounds bad, but they would have been confident enough they were going to win against Italy, and at the end of the championship, if they win it, they're going to, people are going to say, oh well, there's 5 points you got against Italy, so it wasn't really a big drama in the end. I do think though some of the players look a little bit fatigued, and I thought that they, particularly, Dupont, Intermac, they weren't at their best for Toulouse going into this competition, but those type of players, big occasion, must-win game, they can turn it on, and I think they'll be significantly better. But I also think we're better. I think we're better than we were last year, and we ran them quite close last year without Sexton away in Paris. So, and I think we're just a little bit more detailed in them, but also have a nice balance of X factor and players who can make things happen. So I think we'll get a job done.
Obviously, a lot of talk about Tyke Furlong missing, clearly a massive blow for Ireland. And we mentioned Finlay Bealham, obviously, a couple of minutes ago, did brilliantly well against Wales. But would the question marks be on the other side of the scrum this weekend, where Andrew Porter is going up against Weenie Atonio, who we struggled against in the past, and you've Paul Valemse in behind him as well. It's an area where Ireland really, really struggled in Paris last year, and has Andrew Porter answered enough of those questions around the scrum?
I think he has. I think there's a body of work there over the last couple of years to prove that he has. It's going to be a massive challenge across the board for our eight. But I liked what we did last weekend. We seemed to, and again, look, it's obviously a different challenge going up against a massive French pack. But I thought we closed the space really well against Wales. Kind of cramped them up on the hit. I think we'll have to do something similar. Be very smart on our own ball, and then have a plan, I suppose, in terms of when it's their ball. But look, I think Ports, sometimes he does kick his hips out a small bit, but like, the guy is so strong. I think they just need to work together as a unit. John Fogarty will get them really prepped for the challenge this week, and as working as an eight, not just as a front three. So it's going to be a big challenge for Ports, for Finlay, for Dan if he's in the middle as well. So they're massive men. Willems, I don't know, will they bring Taufanua back into the second row to add extra beef instead of Flamont? So they have these options as well to make that scrum even beefier.
How do you see that area, Birch?
Yeah, he tends to like being able to replace Williams with another, as I say, monster at the 55-minute mark. I think the worry for them is that Paul hasn't got back to where he was.
No.
He's only come back from an injury, but he's played 2 or 3 games for Montpellier, and against Montpellier he wasn't, and against Italy he wasn't as good as he was last year, and he is a key man for them. Their scrum actually was under a bit of pressure against Italy, but they will see an Irish scrum without Furlong as something that they want to attack. So they may go for two tractors, as they would say in France, in Taufania and Willems, but that would obviously take from their line out a little bit and take from their bench impact. So no, I think they'll go with Willems and Flamont was actually decent as well. So, and they've got some good jumping back rows with Livion and Aldrit. So, but I think they'll stick with Taufania coming on off the bench.
In general, playing against a Ireland have had their difficulties in the past playing against teams that have the size advantage and the power advantage. But Sean, does the win against South Africa, has that maybe provided a level of reassurance to the team that when they are up against a squad that has a big size advantage or a power advantage, that they can work their way around it?
Well, I think even thinking back to that game, I just think the level of detail around defending the maul was top class that day. So that shut down a massive area of attack that the South Africans had. Going back to the game last year in Paris, where they really attacked our exit ruck. I think they got one of their tries off that. That'll be an area where Ireland will take some key learnings about, especially when they're exiting, maybe throwing one or two more bodies into the breakdown, and then getting our kicking strategy right from that. So there's a few areas where maybe Ireland are going to send maybe one more body into a certain breakdown off the edges to try and counteract that, I suppose, real threat at the ruck in terms of the barrage impact that France could have. But again, it's about getting the plan detailed during the week and trying to put that plan into place at the weekend. And I'm sure the lads are, between Paul and the coaching staff, are putting that in place to try and have it right for Saturday.
On Italy's performance then against France, to move it on, they did so many brilliant things and so many difficult things brilliantly, but what killed them ultimately was probably an inability to do the simple things like exiting well, just making the right decisions when they were under pressure. Flamand's try was a charge down inside the first couple of minutes off a box kick. They almost conceded another try a couple of minutes later when they made a hames of an exit. It was called back for a knock on. But ultimately, the heads aren't dropping as they probably have been with Italy in previous years, and they gave France a really good run in the end. But if they can just sort out a lot of those basics, there's the makings of a really, really good team there.
No, for sure, and Benetton are rejuvenated again. Obviously, 3 or 4 years ago they were playing some great stuff, and then they had a bit of a dip. And Crowley now obviously has gone to Italy, and like just getting that win in the Six Nations away in Wales last year was massive. Obviously beating Australia, but now I think the thing for them is to be consistent in the Six Nations. We have in the past seen them competitive round 1, round 2. And by the end, just be cannon fodder for teams who want to get bonus points. So I don't think we can rest assured that they're back yet. But certainly the signs are that they have the capabilities to be more than more than competent and more dangerous for any team. With obviously that hope that they are a team who can start get wins regularly in the Six Nations, and they have some. The back row is outstanding, and obviously, Capuso is electric. He's a player you just want to see get his hands on the ball. Scored a great try again at the weekend. They have a 10 coming back, as I said, Garbisi, but they need a 9.
But Birch, then the next question: if they can sort out some of those more simple things, do you give them a chance this weekend against England at Twickenham?
No, I don't think so. I think they'll actually struggle against a team like England who will be even more pragmatic. Borthwick's going to probably double down on what he wants, and there's the Leicester model, data driven. I think because England would kick so much, I don't think Italy are anywhere. They could have individuals, but I don't think they're anywhere near as advanced in that counter attack and phase attack game as Scotland are. To be fair, that's what Gregor Townsend has been trying to get out of Scotland for 6-7 years. So I think England will be able to suffocate them and not give them some of the opportunities that France did to stay in the game. Obviously, France's discipline was so poor. Italy had countless opportunities to get field position.
You go along with that, Sean?
Yeah, I would. And quite a funny moment from the game between England and Scotland. Just touching on Birch, what he said about England being even more pragmatic. When there was kick tennis going on between Scotland and England, and Haskell Collins got the ball, and you could see he didn't want to kick the ball, and he was in two minds, and he tried to run it and got turned over. I don't know whether Scotland actually scored off it at the end, but I think that'll be doubled down on this week by Borthwick about staying to the system. You see the way Leicester played over the last couple of years, very pragmatic, maybe will not attack inside their own half, box kick, try and get possession back. So look, no, I wouldn't give. I think England will grind them down this weekend. They're trying to bounce back from a loss at home as well. So it won't be Italy's weekend this weekend. But I definitely see if they can get their exit strategy better, a 9, and with Garbisi coming back, look, they will be stronger. But it's like Birch said, will they pit her out towards the end of the competition? It's hard to know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. On England and Scotland then. So, Birch, you kind of touched on it there earlier on. But if you're looking at England, an enormous amount of possession through the match. They scored three tries, granted. But the flip side is they forced Scotland to make 227 tackles. But Scotland only conceded 9 penalties. Is that absolutely world-class defense, or is that an attack that is just not really stretching teams or making them have to make big decisions?
Yeah, look, I think it's the attack not being fluid or dangerous, and I think the whole Marcus Smith, Owen Farrell, 10-12 axis is going to come under more scrutiny this week, and they actually now have had a lot of time together, and obviously Nick Evans being brought in from Harlequins to be the attack coach led you to believe that they were going to double down on Marcus Smith, but realistically, if you're going to play such a kick-heavy game, such a territorial game, you're probably better off having George Ford or Owen Farrell being your 10, to be honest. And that's going to be interesting how that develops, because Marcus Smith is a great talent, but you probably have to have a complete change of philosophy as a team. Never mind just around kicking off first phase or second phase. So that's going to be a challenge for Borthwick. And I think they have some good individuals for sure, but together, and I think Borthwick said, "Oh, we're going to fix our set piece. We're going to fix our kicking game. We're going to fix our defense, and then we'll fix our attack." But yeah, at the moment, there's no point having all that possession if you're just carrying off one-out runners and there's no ball movement, because any good defense will be able to shut that down.
Yeah, I saw it mentioned Marcus Smith, for example, Sean, had 14 carries during the game, and an enormous amount of those were him just stepping into blind alleys because the options weren't there, and there just doesn't seem to be the same connect or the same, I suppose, the same way of going about things as he has with Harlequins, where he has someone like Andre Esterhazen outside of him who can do an enormous amount of the absolutely filthy grunt work that can allow Smith, for example, to play with that bit more freedom and that bit more space. Yeah,
I think the combination of Smith and Farrell worked quite well off set piece play, because they knew where they were going for the first 2 to 3 phases, but after that they seemed to lose their way big time. Whether one guy would say Farrell was caught in a rock, and then Smith stepped up, and then Farrell was coming out, and it didn't seem to be that fluid. So from a phase play point of view, I thought it didn't work. There is calls for possibly Slade to come back in, but it will come under more scrutiny as the weeks go on. There might be a bounce back this week, obviously, with Italy at home, and things might run a bit smoother, but it's a big call, because like I touched on there a couple of minutes ago, with Borthwick coming in, bringing in his style of play, a bit more pragmatic, based around the kicking game, pressure, maul. I thought they've obviously brought in Nick Evans as well. I thought they went away, Birch, I don't know if you agree, from their maul at the weekend. Did a lot of breakout plays, didn't really wear the Scots down in terms of trying to take their legs in the maul. And but again, going back to your fact, it was a bit of world-class defence as well. To have that many tackles without breaking the 10 penalty mark, I thought was outstanding as well from Scotland. But was a bit taken aback with the approach of Borthwick, considering I watched a lot of Leicester play this year, about how they approach the game from an attacking point of view.
Well, let's give Scotland their dues, because I think we've barely actually mentioned them so far. First of all, the 2 Van der Merwe tries, because his 2 tries in the game, in a way they were both as good as each other, but they were remarkably different. The first one obviously was, him just pouncing on loose ball, poor kick chase, and splitting England open with one of the greatest individual tries we've ever seen in the competition. And then the other side of it was when things were really tight and really close, the winning score of just really, really good, tight rugby, everyone executing their jobs, the tip on pass from Richie Gray to eventually put Van der Merwe out in the corner, and he still had so much work to do there. But two absolutely fantastic tries. Might talk us through them individually. The first one, though, obviously, Sean, it was just a moment of absolute brilliance to light up a game.
It was, and like you said, it's one of the best tries I've seen at any level. I really, it was the last bit of play where he switched the ball from, I'm not too sure which way, to get defend on
Right
that
to
front.
left.
Right to left, was it? Yeah. So, to do that is just, it's just sheer instinct, and to get his fend on Dombrand to finish. But a lot of people saying it was poor defense. I've tried to tackle Duhan van der Merwe a couple of times playing against him, and he's a hard man to put down. So it was outstanding. And like you said, the second try as well, 70 odd minutes gone, Richie Gray, beautiful, quick, slick hands to Fagerson, who didn't take too much out of the ball either, just gave it straight to him and said, look, you do what you do. And if I manage to get a pass back on the inside, great, but didn't take too much out of the ball, put him away. And he's a world-class finisher, so no, like you said, we have to give serious pats in the back to Scotland. The penalty count, under 10, the tackle count, the playing coast to coast at times, great individual moments as well. So it was a big win for them, big statement.
Bert, from a coach's point of view, would you have probably got a little bit more satisfaction out of that second try where you had so many people executing a job absolutely brilliantly, or still do you just sit back and marvel at that?
Yeah, look, I think they were both brilliant. I think for the first one, obviously, it's incredible by Van der Merwe, but there's also obviously the plan. So he's he's all the way across, nearly on the right wing. So they're working once they see that box kick coming to be able to go back at him. There's a nice little subtle block to open up the hole for him, and off that front line, where just one of the fellas running kick escort just turns his shoulders at the right moment, and that just blocks an English defender. And then obviously when he gets behind him, he's ridiculously good. And then the second one is just, I think it's just a lot of moving parts. Everyone knowing their role in the shape, being able to attack the parts of the field that aren't well defended. And the Richie Gray pass. I mean, he's someone I thought had dropped off. You know what I mean? He was obviously a phenomenal player for Scotland, and went to France. Didn't really, pull up trees in France, to be fair, and then lost his place with Scotland. But he's come back now, and he was brilliant. He was brilliant on Saturday, and Scotland have done this before against England, particularly, and failed to back it up. And it'll be interesting. They're saying all the right things this week. They brought in a mental skills coach called Aaron Walsh from the Chiefs, and hopefully, I'm sure that Gregor feels it was part of that. The mental side of it getting carried away. And if you remember, he lost last year in Cardiff having won a Calcutta Cup game in big scalp. And now they face a Welsh team who again looked there for the taking, but last year they didn't do it. So they can beat Wales. They have a 15 who are individually, are Six Nations quality players. You could question some of their depth, but I don't know. I need to see them against Wales back it up before I would jump on the hype train.
And that's it exactly, Sean, isn't it? Like, this is, they've won 4 or 5 meetings against England, and a few of those in the opening round as well. And last year in particular, just how badly they just couldn't back it up. An amazing statistic. They haven't won the opening 2 games of a 5 or 6 Nations championship since 1996. Like, that's an incredibly long, you're talking 27 years since they started win-win in the championship, which is incredible. But I did think it was interesting to see on all the podcasts I've listened to, or all the footage I've seen after the match, any one of the players interviewed, pretty much the first thing that they've been saying was, we didn't actually play that well today. we made a lot of mistakes. We didn't have much of the ball. We were quite disappointed with a lot of things. I think 12 months ago, the reactions to that win that they had at Murrayfield, let alone at Twickenham, would have been a lot different.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably backed up by the fact that they won, what is it, the last 4 Calcutta Cups? Or
4 of 5.
Yeah,
3 in a row and 4 of 5.
So that's probably developed a certain mindset where they've moved on from that being, a couple of years ago, you had Greg Laidlaw with the tie over the head out in the nightclub afterwards because it didn't come around that often before. Yeah. So probably has been a shift in mindset. And it was 2 years ago that they beat England and then lost to Wales at home, wasn't it? Yeah. Because they had the same 2 fixtures. So it's like Bert said, I'm obviously massively looking forward to the French game, but it's that Scotland game at home to Wales is another big game I'm looking forward to see if they can back it up and what sort of performance they can put in under a bit of pressure. Big win away from home, coming back to Murrayfield and going into that break week where possibly they could be top of the competition on the break week. So we'll see how to deal with that different sort of pressure playing at home after a big win.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. We're pretty much completely out of time, lads. I had been hoping to mention the under-20s who had a really exciting win against Wales in Colwyn Bay on Friday night and playing France this Friday as well at Musgrave Park. But we will park it there. That game will be live on RT2 and RT Player on Friday night, Ireland and France in the under-26 Nations. But last thing I want to get from you fellas, predictions for this weekend. So we have Ireland, France, Scotland, Wales, and then England against Italy on Sunday. Who are the 3 winners this weekend? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Ireland, Scotland, England.
3 home wins. Sean, what about you?
I'm going to row in behind Birch there. I'll go with. I think Scotland will get it done at home against Wales, and then the other 2. I think Ireland will get it done as well, and England will be much improved on Sunday.
Very good. So Ireland and France, that's 2:15 at the Aviva Stadium on Saturday afternoon, live on RT2 and RT Player, and also England, Italy then on Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. live on RT2 and RT Player, and you've got coverage of Ireland, France on RT Radio 1 as well. But lads, thanks a million for joining us. Enjoy the games of the weekend. Birch, we'll see you on our screens on Friday and Saturday. And Sean, enjoy the match with the kids on Saturday at the Aviva.
I will, if I make it out alive, hopefully.